topics to enlighten, stimulate debate, and explore solutions. Hear the facts, hear the real-life stories, hear a view from the outside. Join Brayton Horn at 7:30 a.m. every Saturday on Nice Radio for A View from the Outside.
This society need a spectacle. It might help us to see some evil. This society need a spectacle.
29 minutes to go before 8 o'clock. A view from the outside with Brayton Horn. I said it's an inside view from the outside this morning. Brayton, you got an election coming up. Good morning to you.
Yes, we do. We have an election. And according to what Mr. Corbyn, who is the leader of the opposition, has said, June marks the end of May. So who knows what's going to happen after the election.
I like that. June, I like that. June marks the end of May.
June. Absolutely. But we do have an election coming up in the UK, and we wait to see what happens. It's only time will tell, because as we know, no polls or anything can these days determine an election, as was evident in the United States of America in their general elections recently.
But 21 points.
How are you doing, Randy?
21 points. Can you? That's what they're saying. She's ahead by 21 points ahead of Corbyn. 21 points, a lot of points.
That's what the polls say. But I mean, I'm neither here nor there with the polls. I'm neither here nor there with the parties per se. But I do have my preference, and my preference, I hope, will be victorious in the end.
But in the Brexit was like 51-49, 51-48. So the election doesn't have anything to do with parties. If people feel that the Remain people figures that they're supposed to vote for Labour, they could just vote for Labour.
Absolutely. Yes. Brexit has nothing per se to do with the general elections, and it is because of that why many believe Theresa May has called the general election, where she is trying to get a mandate from the people to follow through with Brexit. But as you say, people who have voted Leave can vote for Labour. People who have voted Remain can vote for Labour, and vice versa. But we have a situation now where you're quite right. The Conservative Party, Theresa May's party, is ahead in the polls, but who knows? Who knows, Randy?
So where does the Lib Dems play into this? Because they're looking for some gains. They're talking about a soft Brexit.
Well, they are. I mean, to a certain extent. But you may well remember, and the listeners may well remember, that during the last elections which were held, the general elections which were held in the United Kingdom, that the Lib Dems were virtually annihilated from during that elections because of the promises which they made the previous elections, and they did not keep when they went into bed with the Conservative Party, when they formed the coalition with the Conservative Party. And so as a result of that, the Lib Dems are really trying to bounce back now, and it is really how much, if at all, the electorate trust them, because they see them as a party that, especially when they were led by Nick Clegg, who is no longer the leader. When they were led by Nick Clegg, they felt that they as in the electorate, felt that they were badly let down by this party. So the Lib Dems, they're there still. I see the media trying to say that they are an alternative, so to speak, but I think the electorate will tell whether they are or not come election day.
Just giving you an inside view from the outside, checking up on what's happening in the United Kingdom. It's a beautiful day here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Britain. The weatherman says it's going to be partly cloudy to occasionally cloudy with a few scattered showers, but got a good looking Saturday.
Yeah, I heard you've been having quite a lot of rain as well, and I was hoping that you see nothing close to the sort of devastation that we have had within recent times as far as flooding and everything else is concerned. But I'm pleased to hear that you're having a wonderful day.
Yes, Thursday night into Friday morning, we did have a fair amount of rain, not like what we had in the previous trough systems.
Yes, and And I'm quite pleased that today, of all days, you're having a good day because it's Judy Boucher's day this evening. I know, and I wish Judy and all the organizers and everybody well to have a wonderful show. Because I think Judy, having made the contribution that she has, deserves to have a good day for a good show. Well, Randy, let me say good morning to all of the listeners, all of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and listeners to Nice Radio everywhere. Just to let you know, you mentioned the weather, and I must mention the weather too, because our listeners look forward to this. In London at the moment, it is mostly cloudy, and the sun is trying to pair through the clouds with much difficulty. The temperature is 11 degrees Celsius, which is approximately 52 degrees Fahrenheit. And on a more down note, next week is predicted to be quite cold. But sometimes predictions don't come true, and that's one of them which we hope does not come through. So that's the position as far as the weather in London is concerned. Randy, you've drawn out of me a view from the outside on the inside, so to speak. But this week we are going to look at the issue of corruption. corruption, corruption. And that has been in the news in St. Vincent and the Grenadines quite recently. And we're looking at that corruption with the view that the perception is growing that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is fast becoming one of the most corrupt countries, if it is not already the most corrupt country in the Caribbean. Many people believe that since the advent of the current regime in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the country has been propelled to such ignominious status. Many believe, too, that the corrupt practices under and by some members of the regime itself, because of those corrupt practices, the economic growth has been stalled completely. And as a result of that, many people of the country languish in poverty and despair. Such belief is certainly in keeping with what the president of Mongolia said. I always have difficulty pronouncing his name, but I'm going to give it a go. His name is Segyiagin Elbegdorje. And what Segyiagin Elbegdorje said, that's the president of Mongolia, he said, corruption is a true enemy of development. So the belief that the country's economic growth is stalled is really in keeping with that corruption is a true enemy of development. The Cambridge Dictionary defines corruption as illegal, bad, or dishonest behavior by people in positions of power. And the Merriam-Webster Dictionary says corruption is dishonest or illegal behavior, especially by powerful people, such as government officials or police officers. It's not limited to those, but those are examples of people who perpetrate corruption. With such definition in mind, and with the following examples, you can certainly decide for yourself whether the perception is correct that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is or is fast becoming the corruption capital of the Caribbean. Vincentians, you certainly have not forgotten that members of the current regime took $1 million in cash to the then National Commercial Bank and attempted to deposit it into the account of the Accountant General of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You are no doubt aware that up to now, no one has given any explanation as to where that money came from in the first place, and in fact, where it has gone. You will no doubt be aware too that following that incident, many experienced staff were removed and replaced at the bank. And you would know that the bank itself collapsed sometime thereafter. Surely that must rank as corruption at the highest level. Vincentians, you will remember too that civil servants at the highest level, even permanent secretaries, have been guilty of breaching the civil service rules, committing theft, and being involved in other fraudulent activities. And simply because they're supporters of the regime, they have received little or no punishment at all. In fact, in some cases, they receive promotion. Surely, that too must rank as corruption at the highest level. It must be corruption of the highest level when you have a regime that has promised many investigation after investigation for years now on a number of issues. But up to now, they are still to present to you, the people of the country, any report. You, the people to whom they are supposed to be accountable. Where is the report into the death of Glenn Jackson? The man whom many say was instrumental in getting the regime into power, and who, it is said, was about to blow the lid on some damaging issues before his life was snuffed out. Do not ever forget, Vincentians, that the entire nation was told from the highest level that Glenn Jackson was killed by a deadly assassin's bullet. Yet, no report into his death. Where is the report which was promised into the death of Silma Kodo Thomas from Chateaubriand, who many believe died at the hands of the police? And what has become of the investigation into the death of Edgar Cruikshank? Cruikshank was another ardent supporter who, it is said, just prior to him being mowed down and killed, pledged his support to the opposition party. No report? Where is the report in the high-profile case of the then Consul General in New York, Edson Augustus? Vincentians, you certainly have not forgotten when the news broke in early February 2014 that Mr. Augustus was involved in suspicious activities involving passports and U.S. green cards. You have not forgotten that the nation was promised an investigation and a report. In fact, the nation was told that Mr. Augustus was involved in activities outside the scope of his employment and inimical to the interest of the Consulate General and the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Inimical, Vincentians, mean harmful, damaging, detrimental. So if Mr. Augustus has done things which are harmful, damaging, or detrimental to the interest of the Consulate General and the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, why have you, Vincentians, the people, not been told of the outcome of any investigation? Is something been hidden? If so, what? Is Mr. Augustus been hidden? If so, where? Surely that must smack of corruption at the highest level. And talking about investigation and the lack of reporting, Vincentians, you must be asking for the report that the nation was promised into the issue which surfaced just prior to the elections of December 9th, 2015. You will remember when information surfaced that the Prime Minister said he had instructed the Attorney General and the Commissioner of Police to conduct an investigation regarding speculation of Vincentians, including high-ranking members of the regime, having multi-million-dollar bank accounts in Switzerland and elsewhere. Where is the report of any such investigation? Corruption? You might ask. In respect of other forms of corruption, you must also never forget that this regime has seen it fit to go to the Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and pass laws retroactively to make illegal acts legal. In this vein, you must never forget the Passport Amendment Act. Always remember that the amendments were made following the incident in New York pertaining to Mr. Augustus. And do not forget when this regime burnt thousands and thousands of Vincentian passports following reports of the untrustworthiness of these documents. And then, Vincentians, you must never forget also the millions of dollars spent to purchase lumber, cement, and galvanize, which were distributed just prior to the general elections. And just so that you are left in no doubt about their intention to give out lumber, cement, and galvanize, you must remember what was said when the regime was thrashed in the referendum of 2009. You, Vincentians, were cursed, you were ridiculed, you were denigrated, and you were told that because you were not given lumber, cement, and galvanize, you did not vote for them. Well, they gave you lumber, cement, and galvanize just prior to the elections of 2015. Vincentians, that surely is corruption at the highest level. There are so many examples of corruption at the highest level that could be cited here. However, time does not permit a mention of all of them. You certainly will remember some of them. But we must also mention the instance or instances when the Tenders Board was illegally bypassed to give contracts for government projects. Vincentians, you must remember the arrogance when you were told that they have bypassed the Tenders Board and they will do it again. Surely that is corruption at the highest level. We must also mention the corruption pertaining to nepotism, where members of one family seem to be given the best opportunities, whether it be pertaining to jobs or to duty-free concessions, while the rest of society, and especially those who are deemed not to be supporters of the regime or those who are out of favor, are left to languish. In fact, one high up in the regime has stated that these people must suffer and die. Well, it is clear that the words of Enrique Pena Nieto, or EPN as he's called, that is the president of Mexico. Those words are so relevant here. And he said, whenever there are some who have more opportunities than others, this feeds corruption. Yes, Vincentian, corruption seems to be rife. The country has a regime which has refused to honor their legal and constitutional obligation and lay accounts relating to government expenditure on all projects before the Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They have not done so for years. No public accounts. Surely, that is corruption at the highest level. The view from the outside is that corruption is indeed rife in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Vincentians, look for yourselves, and you will see that the corruption is glaring. You certainly will agree that the corruption must stop. You must demand that it is stopped. You have to challenge them. Challenge yourself that you will stop it. As we go forward, Vincentians, let us all be resolved and say the words of President Barack Obama loud and clear. Let us say it. Say those words loud and clear so that they can hear. And President Obama said, to those who cling to power through corruption and deceit and the silencing of dissent, know that you are on the wrong side of history. Vincentians, let us also remember and put into practice the words of the legend Nelson Mandela from a speech which he delivered to the South African Parliament on the 5th of February, 1999. Nelson Mandela said, our hope for the future depends also on our resolution as a nation in dealing with the scourge of corruption. That, therefore, is the challenge to all Vincentians. And the challenge is the resolution as a nation to end the scourge of corruption. Randy, until next week, this is Britton Horn with a view from the outside, and reminding our listeners to send feedback to aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. That's aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. Randy, have a pleasant day. Have a great weekend. Enjoy Judy Boucher, and we look forward to a fruitful week ahead. All the very best to you and all the listeners.
Britton, thank you. Thank you very much.